Argentina was once one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but for over a century, it struggled. Now some believe it could be coming back. So I recently went to Buenos Aires, and today I'm going to tell you what I loved about the city, what I hated about it, and I'm going to help you decide if it's a place that you should consider. The original international man, Doug Casey, told me about Buenos Aires many times at Nomad Capitalist Live. The one thing that has changed since Doug first started going there is Buenos Aires is no longer affordable. There was a time when it was probably on par with Kuala Lumpur, for example, for best value city in the world. I don't think it's that anymore. We'll come back to that in the cons. But let's first talk about the pros of Buenos Aires. I felt a great efficiency during my time in Buenos Aires. I came from Sao Paulo, which I didn't feel was that efficient. I spent 3 weeks in Sao Paulo. I came to Buenos Aires, and I felt it was instantly different. Even going through the immigration line, the way they talk to you, the pleasantness, things just move. They know what they're doing. I often travel on the passports of countries that immigration officers don't always know where they are, or there's different lettering on it. And some places, especially in South America, they really get kind of like, okay, where's this country? Argentina, it was very straightforward. The airport moved, even getting into the car. I have a couple specific requests. Easily handled. People really seem on the ball there. Argentina is called the Europe of Latin America. A lot of people who have moved there from Europe, there's a more European culture there. What I would say is there's just a culture of greater efficiency compared to perhaps much of the rest of South America. Perhaps on par with Bogota. I think Bogota has really gotten good. You've got really great people in Bogota also. But Buenos Aires, I really felt that it moved. Open immigration policy, so people from a lot of countries all around the world can come there. I brought some folks from my personal team and from the Nomad Capitalist team. They had an easy time, generally speaking, getting in. Once we got into the city, I like the architecture, and that's something that people talk about as an important quality. For me, how I feel is important, and I even taken the data points of what's it like in the immigration line. That is a challenge that I have. That's why I won't go to Mexico anymore, because the immigration experience is so terrible. It's just not worth it. And so I take all those different data points into account. But you can also take the aesthetic into account. You don't want to live in an ugly city. Buenos Aires has nice architecture. There is a cohesive vibe to the city. It feels nice. I instantly came in and I felt better. And I just looked out on my balcony and I said, this looks and feels nice. I walked around. It looks and feels nice. It's almost a throwback. And so if you like the idea of living in the roaring 20s, Argentina, Buenos Aires actually feels like you're living in the roaring 20s in a way, in that it is not super modern. Now, there's a part the water where they built some really modern stuff, and you've got great restaurants and hotels and shops, really nice tango show. But the center parts of the city are this sort of throwback, which I sort of appreciate. And so many places I went around Buenos Aires, beautiful cafes and restaurants, it felt like a throwback. It almost felt like you were dining back in that era. You have good service and good services. It certainly is more brusque. The instant thing that we kind of picked up on was a bit of brusqueness compared to, for example, Bogota. People are super friendly, super kind, super humble. In Argentina, it's a bit more direct. So you can call it a pro, you can call that a con. What you're getting in exchange is, again, things work pretty efficiently. I felt like there were good services available. And what's interesting is if you want to live in Buenos Aires or anywhere else in Argentina, not only do you have this huge, big country that you can travel throughout, you can go to the wine region in Mendoza, the wine region in Salta. You can go to Patagonia, which they love, and so many foods come from that. But there's a path that you can get citizenship in as little as 2 years by living there about half the time and by learning Spanish. And so that's a great thing to have access to, particularly, the location of Argentina. Inconvenient for traveling, great for a plan B, great for being far away from it all. One of the other things is you've got really high quality food there by and large, and they're very proud of the areas where they grow their food and they grow their wine, and having this great quality food. Not only the steaks and the beef that they're known for, but so many other foods. You'll see, oh, that's from Patagonia, that's from here, that's from there. They really are proud of that. And you can have this very organic lifestyle. What Doug Casey would always say is, I'm the foreigner that they just leave alone. And yet it seems like among South American countries, Argentina is a place where you can go and feel like less of a foreigner, because so many folks are from not only from Europe, but from all over the world that have gone there over the years. And so I like that. The place just seems to move. Now, let's talk about the cons. That throwback could be frustrating. There are not as many international brands there. We filmed Live Like a King, and so you'll see us at the watch store. The international brands they have, you might pay more because there are certain taxes on bringing stuff in. We'll see if the new administration works on that. One of the big things for me is the distance. If you're coming, we flew on Ethiopian Airlines from Sao Paulo to Buenos Aires. Because they have so many what are called fifth freedom flights, where airlines come from. In the case of Ethiopian Airlines, they come from Addis Ababa. There's other flights for like Turkish Airlines flies there. I had a really hard time finding a local airline, either from Brazil or Argentina, flight between Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires because that route seems to be dominated by all these other airlines that are flying so far away, and they can only get to Sao Paulo, and then they tack on the 3-hour flight down to Buenos Aires. So it certainly is far away. For someone who wants to travel, I think that would be frustrating. Now, for someone like Doug Casey, for example, I mean, he lives in Uruguay. He's lived in Argentina. He goes back to the U.S. every once in a while. You know, he's spoken at our event, Nomad Capitalist Live. We did a couple of those in Mexico. That's kind of his domain. And if you make that your domain, I mean, the U.S. is still far away, but if you just like Latin America, then that's more accessible. If you're like me and you want to go all over the world, the distance really gets to you. Again, that could be a con if you're saying, hey, I think some bad stuff is going to go out in the world. Let me be as far away from that as possible. So some of these could be pros or cons. The one thing that I think most people would agree is a con is the prices have become insane. I went to, admittedly, a very nice and aesthetic cafe, and I paid $14 for a beverage, just a simple hot chocolate. Service was very nice, beautiful place. Again, throwback. I mean, just gorgeous interior. And I understand it's a bit of a tourist kind of place, but mostly I saw locals. And people were speaking in Spanish. I didn't see a lot of people doing Instagram there and getting their Instagram pictures. You go to a nice dinner, it's expensive. Things are expensive. Real estate is more expensive compared to Bogota, for example. I think another great city in South America, or cities in Asia like Kuala Lumpur, which is an incredible value. So the idea of Buenos Aires as being this incredible value really no longer exists because now the currency situation has been brought under control. There's one exchange rate, and that's what you pay. So the good news is, as in much of Latin America, they'll take your American Express cards. If you're coming from the United States, that's something that people look for as well. Not well accepted in Europe. My pitch, very simply, is Argentina is one of two things. It's a plan B. You get a residence permit there, and you keep it in your back pocket. It's not going to lead to citizenship if you don't spend time there, generally speaking. But why not have a residence permit in a place that you can so affordably get, that's far away from it all, in a country where you could go and spend time at some point in the future and get citizenship. So if you're not ready, get a residence permit, go down to Argentina, check it out, get that residence permit, and then keep it in your back pocket as an option. Maybe Malay decides to dramatically lower taxes at some point once things improve. If nothing else, it could be a place, again, just to have as a backup. If you don't want to do that and you're looking for an actual place to move, as I said, I think the Doug Casey approach is correct. You want to stay out of the Argentina tax net, so you don't want to spend the majority of your time there. But you could live there, have a home there. Maybe you go across to Uruguay and you make that your tax home. They've got an 11-year tax holiday where you can basically pay zero on all your foreign income. And so you're a tax resident and a part-time resident of Uruguay and a part-time resident of Argentina. I was also in Paraguay. You could do the tax residence routine in Paraguay and then come over to Buenos Aires for the rest of the time. So whether you want something a bit more cosmopolitan in Montevideo or Punta del Este, Uruguay, or whether you want something a bit more up and coming and rough around the edges in Asunción, Paraguay, either of those could work as a complement. You could also go further afield and just live my trifecta method in South America, where maybe you spend 4 months in Buenos Aires, 4 months in Asunción, 4 months in Bogota, and you could basically have your tax base, again, in very tax-friendly Paraguay. The challenge with Argentina, for me, if you want to live there full-time, is the high taxation, is the admittedly shrinking bureaucracy, but it still is there. Is the fact that, as with much of Latin America, it's not a place where you really want to bank and move your assets. You need to find somewhere else to put that. But the kicker in Argentina is you could potentially get citizenship there if you play it right. I was in Buenos Aires with one of my colleagues, and she leads up our knowledge department and manages all of our vendors around the world. She got a tip that Argentina is potentially open to granting citizenship to people who don't live there, but who make substantial investments in the country. Now, we're following that up, and we're going to see what happens. Now, she went to a meeting with some folks in the government. Everything that we're going to be doing, of course, is going to be fully legal. And so we're going to see what happens in the coming months if Argentina opens up some sort of expanded citizenship program that does not require you to move there a majority of the time. And so that's what you get as a client of Nomad Capitalist, is access to our ongoing R&D. We've got people located all around the world staying on top of the developments, from citizenship to taxes to incorporation to asset protection in all the different countries, so that if something changes, we know about it. We have our own AI-driven knowledge base that we created from scratch that houses all of our knowledge from around the world, houses our vendors that we work with all around the world. We have the best network of experts. We keep up to date with anything that we find on the internet where there's a change potentially. We go and check it out. We have people around the world. And if you come to us, we're going to build you a bespoke and holistic plan using all of our global knowledge, not just to tell you they have to move to Argentina. You could say, hey, I want to move to Buenos Aires, and we do a consultation with you, and we determine, no, Buenos Aires isn't what you need because of X, Y, and Z, but here's what you do need instead. Or we could say Argentina is part of the puzzle. And so everyone's plan is different. Go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply and learn how to put that bespoke and holistic approach to work for you, but also learn how you can get in with all the R&D that we're doing, where we go to Buenos Aires, we take a meeting with the government. There's not a lot of people on YouTube who are doing that. And so I think that what we do very well at Nomad Capitalist is bridge the gap between the people who just come on YouTube and talk and try and position themselves as doing what we do, and the fancy law firms and other companies out there that probably look down their nose at Argentina and say, oh, we don't have people move to Singapore, this is Argentina. We're in the middle, where I believe in up-and-coming countries. I believe you want to have a plan B in a country like Argentina, whether it's that or not, or somewhere else. And yet we actually go and make sure that we're in the cutting edge of what's happening in potential new citizenship opportunities. And we will know before almost anyone else does. So if you want to put that to work for you, you go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply. We have our boots in the ground in places from Buenos Aires to Maputo, Mozambique, to everywhere in between. And that's what you can take advantage of at nomadcapitalist.com/apply.